Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are getting right into the science of dopamine. We're going to break down how this tiny molecule really drives, well, everything. Your motivation, your focus, and even how satisfied you feel with your life. So let's kick things off with a pretty wild question. What if the very thing you're chasing, pleasure, is actually what's making you less happy? It sounds totally backwards, I know, but we're about to unpack a huge myth that might be messing with your drive without you even knowing it.
I mean, you hear it all the time, right? Dopamine hits. You get a like on Instagram, you eat some chocolate, you check your phone, boom, dopamine hit. But the real story of how this chemical works, it's way more complex and honestly, way cooler than that.
Okay, so the big mental shift we need to make is this. Forget the idea of these little separate hits. Think of your dopamine level like the water level in a pool. It has a normal baseline level. That's your everyday mood and motivation. And when you do something you enjoy, it's not a hit so much as a wave, a temporary peak that rises above that water level. And trust me, that distinction between a hit and a peak, that changes the whole game. And here's where it gets really interesting. Because the story isn't about the peak. It's not about that moment of pleasure. The real story, the part that matters, is what happens right after that wave crashes down. Yup, neuroscientists have a term for this, and when you hear it, it's going to completely change how you look at the balance between pleasure and pain in your own life. So here's the nuts and bolts of it. Think back to high school physics. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. Well, your brain works the same way. That big, awesome peak of pleasure, it's always followed by a dip into pain or craving or just a lack of motivation. Your brain is basically a balancing act, and it will always try to level things out. The seesaw analogy is perfect here. You do something rewarding, and the pleasure side shoots way up into the air. But what happens to the other side? It has to go down, right? And here's the real kicker. It doesn't just go back to being level. It swings below the starting point. It goes into a deficit. If you remember one thing from this whole explainer, make it this. The height of your peak directly determines the depth of your valley. A huge, amazing high is going to cause a really deep, motivation-killing low. It's a non-negotiable rule in your brain. Okay, so just how high are we talking? Let's actually put some numbers on this. You're about to see the difference between an everyday pleasure and something more intense. And yeah, the difference is going to blow your mind. So let's look at some everyday stuff. A piece of chocolate bumps your dopamine up about 1.5 times baseline. Sex, that's about double. Nicotine, 2.5 times. So yeah, these are real noticeable peaks. Okay, but now check this out. Something like amphetamine, we're not talking 2 or 3 times. We're talking a 10 times increase, a 10x peak. Just imagine the valley that comes after that. It just craters your baseline, making it almost impossible to feel good from normal things. And this right here, this seesaw, this is the key. This explains everything. It's why we get stuck in those ruts, feeling burnt out, unmotivated, and always needing something more just to feel okay. And here's the really dangerous part, the long-term effect. If you keep chasing those huge peaks day after day, you're not staying high. You're actually dragging your whole baseline down with you. After a while, you need a massive peak just to get back to where you used to be. And all the little joys in life, they just don't do it for you anymore. And let's be super clear, this is not just about hardcore drugs. That whole work hard, play hard lifestyle, it's the same principle. You're getting a peak from work, then another from junk food, another from your workout, another from partying. It's all spending the same dopamine currency, and you're draining that bank account big time. Okay, I know, that sounds pretty bleak, but here's the good news, the really good news. You're not just a victim here. Once you understand the rules of the game, you can start to play it differently. So let's talk about how we actually get out of this trap and build motivation that lasts. And look, the answer isn't to become a monk and avoid all pleasure. That's not the point. The goal is to be smart about it. It's about managing those peaks so you can protect that precious baseline level of motivation. And luckily for us, there are actual science-backed tools we can use. So let's open up the toolkit and look at some strategies to keep that baseline healthy, skip the crash, and still enjoy life. All right, tool number one is a huge mental switch. Stop thinking about the reward you'll get after you do the hard thing. The real hack is to teach your brain to get the dopamine release from the effort itself. When you start enjoying the challenge, the struggle, that's when you build an engine that never runs out of fuel.
Okay, next up, stop layering. This is a big one. You know, when you need your coffee, plus your pump-up music, plus your pre-workout just to feel ready for the gym? That's layering. You're just raising the price of admission for your own motivation. The smarter way? Use those things intermittently. Sometimes you have music, sometimes you don't. That unpredictability, just like a slot machine, is what keeps your brain hooked and interested for the long run.
And if you want a really powerful, healthy spike, check this out. Cold water exposure, like a cold shower or a plunge, can give you a 250% increase in dopamine. But here's the magic part. It's not a sharp spike and crash. It's a slow, steady rise that lasts for hours. And instead of lowering your baseline, it actually helps to raise it over time. It makes you more resilient.
So I want to leave you with this one last thought because it's a powerful one. When we get stuck chasing bigger and bigger peaks, we think we're chasing happiness, but we're not. We're actually making our world of pleasure smaller and smaller. It's a progressive narrowing of the things that bring us joy until almost nothing does. But now you understand the system, and that knowledge, that gives you the power to break the cycle.